This is SBS World News with Antoninas.
Good evening. Ukraine's capital is in the midst of a 35-hour curfew after intense shelling which killed at least 5 people. While in Mariupol, Russian troops are holding hundreds of people at a hospital like hostages. That's according to the mayor. Thousands of residents did manage to evacuate the city overnight. Meanwhile, the number of Ukrainians who have fled the country now exceeds 3 million, according to the UN Refugee Agency. The country's president says peace talks with Russia are beginning to sound more realistic, but time is still needed before an agreement can be reached. It comes as the leaders of 3 EU nations travel to Kyiv, the Polish Prime Minister saying it is our duty to be where history is forged, while US President Joe Biden will visit Brussels next week to attend NATO and EU summits in person. Joining us now with the latest from Lviv in western Ukraine is SBS Chief International Correspondent Ben Lewis. Ben, good evening to you. As we're reporting tonight, ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine continuing today, but how likely is it that an agreement could be reached in the coming days?
Well, Anton, good evening. It is still hard to say how likely it is. However, the potential landing zone for some sort of ceasefire agreement is becoming more clear. We have heard from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He says that the Kremlin will need Ukraine to declare some sort of military neutrality, and that could be something that Volodymyr Zelensky could live with and would be able to sell to his people. The big question, though, is what will Vladimir Putin accept? His forces have been making pretty slow progress towards Kiev over the last 24 hours and so have been increasingly targeting it from a distance. And this morning we've seen some pretty disturbing footage on social media appearing to show a couple of missile strikes on the outer suburbs of the capital. No word yet on what was hit or what the casualties are. War is destroying the northern suburbs of Kyiv, building by building. These are not military targets, but homes. The victims are civilians, not soldiers.
Будемо триматися, держати кулаки, і все буде добре.
The mayor has seen enough, imposing a 35-hour curfew on the capital.
I call to everyone, every civilian, please spend the time, if it's possible, in bunkers.
The only certainty in this war, there will be more casualties. In this bomb shelter, a makeshift hospital is built, stocked with medical supplies and staffed by students. The danger of the moment making this high-level show of support all the more powerful. The Prime Ministers of Poland, Slovenia and the Czech Republic visiting the capital.
We will never leave you alone. We will be with you, because we know that you are fighting not only for your homes, for your freedom, for your security, but also for ours.
The Ukrainian president grateful for their support, but conceding it probably won't extend to NATO membership.
We have heard for years about open doors, but we have already heard that we won't be able to join. It's the truth, and it's necessary to admit it. I'm glad that our people are starting to understand that and are counting on themselves.
And that's exactly what the people of Kherson are doing. Russia says it took full control of the city overnight, but today Ukrainians protested in the streets, blatantly defying their occupiers.
Two were laughing. I was really furious, so then I just cried out some curse words to them.
While Mariupol remains under Ukrainian government control, Russia has it surrounded. They're blocking food and aid from getting in. But last night, 20,000 people managed to get out. City officials say Russian troops are holding 400 people hostage inside a hospital, many of them patients. The city's plight was a key issue at the latest round of peace talks. Ukraine says they're making progress, but some fundamental contradictions remain.
Meetings continue. As I am told, the positions in the negotiations sound more realistic.
On the front lines, Russia is showing little desire for peace. This building building in Kharkiv was being evacuated when Putin's forces started shelling the area.
How could this monster come up with something like this? People are starving, there's no water, no wood for heating, and he decided to destroy a city.
In Lviv, the war can at times seem distant, but it's not. The daily military funerals here are a reminder this conflict has affected all of Ukraine. Hundreds attending this service, honouring 4 soldiers killed in the Russian missile strikes on a training base not far from this city. Outside, air raid sirens sounded, the announcement urging people to head to bomb shelters. No one did.
It was actually really hard to be there and at the procession, but I think it's my duty as a Ukrainian citizen to honour these soldiers.
There will be many more funerals. Even if Ukraine fights off the Russian advance, it will come at an extraordinary human cost.
Oh, it's probably hard to choose the right words for the families and wives and kids of those soldiers, Ukrainian warriors who have been killed. We can just express our condolences, first of all, and at the same time, we're just trying to reassure that there will be revenge.
Revenge for the servicemen and women who lost their lives in a war Ukraine never sought. Western diplomatic efforts will receive a boost next week when US President Joe Biden travels to Europe for the first time since the invasion began. He will be attending a NATO summit in Brussels. Relations between Russia and the West continue to get colder, with both sides issuing new sanctions.
Signing into law.
Anyway, I'm going to give it a shot here.
The United Nations says more than 3 million Ukrainians have now been forced to flee their country since the Russian invasion began. More than 1.8 million of them have ended up in Poland, while Romania has taken in almost 500,000.
-3 degrees in Moldova and more refugees arrive.
Not only are civilians being targeted here in Ukraine, but so too are journalists. And sadly, a Fox News cameraman and his local Ukrainian producer were killed while reporting in the outer suburbs of Kiev. Yesterday, their correspondent remains in hospital in a serious condition. Anton, we're almost into the 3rd week of this invasion now. Russia thought it would take the capital within 72 hours, but the fight continues.
A tragic situation all round. Thanks, Ben. That's Ben Lewis updating us live from Lviv.